This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, True Seekers and True Crime Junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody to the show at this point. I'd like to welcome Terry Battcher.
Hiya, kids. Hiya.
Good morning. Nolan Del Campo.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And Harriette Sucher.
And Harriette?
Or host.
Really?
There you go. Good morning.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Harriette.
You
Good morning, Harriette.
You can't hear me?
Yes,
you
I can hear
me because I can
Yes.
hear you.
Yes, I said good
Okay,
morning.
so I'll just repeat
Okay.
again. Terry B. and
That's
the
much
Battcher
better.
Nolan and Nanette Bardo. Love you.
All right,
We're
so
not.
we're just
Same
going to
here.
hop right back into the presentation at this point because I am really desperately wanting to finish up this whole DB Cooper thing. I think I might be able to rush ourselves through a little bit of this week, but it may take next week to finalize it. I do have a few slides left in his realm. So we left off last week on the BD Cooper cutout letter that said, "Here you share money, you aren't fool." We discussed really quickly how fool is something that has been used notoriously in the Zodiac killer communications. It has even been solved in some of the cipher codes that were solved by Lauren Swearingham. So fool keeps coming up. We talked about the reference to BD being a connection to the Black Dahlia and how the Zodiac always connected one communication to the next by some linguistics or some language that would allow us to look back, see the other communications, and recognize that those inferences were in there as well. So I just want to move forward to Harriette's solve on this particular letter, which was the BD Cooper, December 6, 1971. I don't know if you have that solve in front of you, Harriette, but it was a short one. I could read it for you and you could tell us what it means.
Oh, go for it, because I know I have it somewhere. But anyways, go for it first, and then I'll find it.
It says, you record duo of Dr. Hodel and Elizabeth Short off.
That's Man Ray, the artist. He was friends with Dr. Hodel.
He's referring to Man Ray. Yes.
I know it refers to Man Ray, but the solve just says A Ray.
Well, I was missing the M and an N, so I'm realizing when I'm looking at what I have, I could go back a little bit more and find the M and the N, because I'm knowing more about these communications a couple of years later. But and I found out that there was the dollar signs, I believe. Anyways, and I knew from the 38th one that I did for Dagnan that the dollar sign was D is for dollar, so I was able to fill in, just enough to where it's saying, here you refer, and the D that I used, I came from one of the dollar signs. Anyways, it's just that he's saying he's blackmailing him with the approval of Nixon. Remember what you did a few years ago when I was just a guy who was up and coming, on the Capitol Hill and in 1940s. So they're blackmailing Bill Hilliard to be involved and pay his debt in a weird way to pay his debt back to society for what they were involved with 20 years earlier, or something like that. So yeah, you record the duo of Dr. Hodel, Man Ray, Elizabeth, and Short, the operation. So yeah, so he's reminding him what he was involved with.
Gotcha. So then in your thoughts, then the communications that were being written in the Black Dahlia case were in fact Jack writing them, but that Jack had not been the one responsible for bisecting or cutting up Black Dahlia.
Yeah, he did. He for some reason, and I think it's because they were Catholic. Elizabeth Short found that was Catholic. Well, Wilkerson was Catholic. It has something to do with, I think it has something to do with the Vatican. And then of course the Kennedys were Catholic. So he's veering off, but he's reminding them, hey, you recorded this and this is what you were involved in. Now it's some years later and you're going to work with us or else. And, you know, in a weird way, pay their debt back to society for things that happened that a lot of people did believe was disgusting and horrible, and people didn't really get arrested for it. So,
well, and I know that I had some confusion when I was looking through the Black Dahlia communications. One of them, it had stated Black Dahlia Avenger, and I couldn't understand how he said he was an Avenger if he was the person who killed her. So he's writing these communications as if he's the person that did it. He's returning her belongings. So he clearly had access to the crime scene and her stuff. Mm-hmm. And yet he is calling himself an Avenger. An Avenger is usually avenging someone's death, not the person who's committed it. So that might make some more sense out of that particular communication. And again, I've said many times, there's a probability that Jack was just the info guy. He was just the person writing the communications in some cases. And that may very well be true with Elizabeth Short.
Yeah, so he's avenging. He splits off underneath. I think he got training under Hodel because Hodel was older. And then it's now Jack is older and he's allegedly training people. You might see it. But anyway, so he became the Avenger during then because something went wrong. And he said, screw this. I don't like what I'm taking part of. And so are other people.
It's very hard to understand you right now. It sounds like you're underwater. I don't know if you're not talking directly into your phone or what.
I'm right here.
No, I know you're here. I'm telling you that the sound is very muddled.
Wow, how weird. Okay. Anyway,
no, it's clear now.
I'll try to talk slower.
Okay, maybe that'll be it.
Talk slower. Let's move on. You got the.
Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to pull out was the cursive written B and D in one of the Black Dahlia communications. We did make a comparison of that letter D to a letter D found in the Donna Last Christmas card or greeting card to her sister, which was consistent. But as I posed them next to Jack's D's, I did not see much. I did not see a lot of similarities in the characteristics. However, we do know that the author is attempting to disguise his handwriting, and the letter B for me was not too far off. I did want to make a comment in regards to some of the writing in here as it pertains to graphology. So it says the first look carefully at the letter D. Can you identify in what way it differs from the previous sample? In this case, we find that the loop is not crossing the stem, but flying above it. And we can actually see that that's what's happening in Jack's world here. His loop is actually above the stem. And again, he has that disconnect in many cases, which we were talking about before. But that high-flying loop above the stem indicates some degree of frivolity or flirtatiousness in the personality. We have the imagination in the upper zone coupled with the energetic movement towards the unknown. And then to kind of compound that is not only is the D bigger, much bigger than everything else, it's also exponentially wider than the rest of the letters in his actual writing. And they talk about this. Here we have the expanded imagination, which is emotionally associated with the past and it indicates an inflated ego. Expect to find someone who demands attention. There's no business like show business. Needless to say, such showmanship can be found in many fields besides show business, like sales and politics are good examples. They are bluffers too. After all, it's image, not accuracy, which is given priority. And I thought that was an interesting take on the inflated B's and D's that Jack actually executes in his own handwriting. So basically, he is a showboater. He's a boaster. He wants that attention. And that's what we see through these communications.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why he was chosen to be the intel guy's communicator, just like you said, relaying information. And he's he's definitely MK Ultra, and he's working with Nixon. So you just said it all right there.
I know, politics, everything, all the way down to that last little bit. Now, when they went on to say that when the capital letters are overly exaggerated and the middle zone is minimized, and that's what we kind of see going on here with Jack stuff. We see that, go back. We see that the D is overinflated, much bigger than the minimized ENNIS in Dennis there. So if the middle zone is minimized, it suggests conflict. German graphologist Popel sees this as evidence of stress. By escaping into a dream world, these writers can avoid dealing with unsatisfactory situations or relationships which occur in the real world. Do remember that the upper zone emphasis does not automatically signify intellectual ability. These individuals want to be seen as exceptional, but if they don't get the recognition they feel they deserve, they can be quite unpleasant. Such emphasis shows that the ego is far more important to the writer than the social aspects of the relationship. When the capitals are broad as well as high, we can add expansiveness and extroversion to the mix. These writers can be quite objectionable at times. Their need for interaction with others in order to use them as a backdrop for each individual performance, coupled with their desire for recognition, can produce arrogance and lack of consideration. More times than not, however, what we have in reality is a false front, a sham, facade, which usually collapses when ego needs are not met to the writer's satisfaction. I got goosebumps over reading that because that just literally screams Zodiac.
Yeah, if you're not paying attention to me, I'm trying to tell you something. I'm going to do something really bad,
or if they get it wrong.
Yeah.
If they get it wrong and they blame someone else or they arrest somebody else, we see the Zodiac's ego go inflated. And actually, DB Cooper, the same thing. You got the wrong person. You don't even have the composite right. So when they do it wrong and his ego isn't met by the satisfaction of getting that recognition, he has to strike out and say something to somebody.
Yeah, especially back to Nixon. Hey, Nixon, you screwed up. I mean, there's things I've seen. So he's like, you guys screwed up here. This isn't right. You need to fix this. It's in a matter of words.
No, yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
You're going to see that. Yeah.
It continues to happen, and he did it in Zodiac, and it's being done in DB Cooper. Again, this is just another one of those traits where how many serial killers or criminals are consistently writing multiple letters, and that you're giving yourself more opportunity to get caught, in my mind. If you're sending and mailing letters and doing things of that nature, you're definitely putting yourself out there in a way you're taking a risk for maybe going down for that actual crime. And it doesn't make any sense to me, but we have it happening in two different crime sprees here. So in the capital letters and printing area, I also noticed that Jack has this open at the top type thing. Again, that disconnect between his letters, and you can see it in lots of them. And open at the top, it means that they're typically open to new experiences. Generosity is characteristically present at times and sometimes characterized as a willingness to share. So generosity doesn't necessarily mean that he's a generous person giving things to people that have less than him. It literally means that they have a willingness to share. And I think that that's what we're seeing in Zodiac and in DB Cooper, Black Dahlia, all of these actually. Any crime where the suspect is happy to write about it, he's willing to share. And when I think about things that are open at the top, it brings in the A's and O's in graphology and the talkativeness that is associated with those characteristics. And I thought that was just hilarious because literally speaking, that's all these people are doing is talking, right? They just have to keep sending these letters in and keep telling things about people. So Jack, Zodiac, and DB Cooper are all talkative and open to new experiences, obviously.
One other thing, the side to all this is that essentially what they're doing is gaslighting the public, which is there's a lot of going on these days, and in a lot of cases going on these days where the public feels helpless and that they're being gaslighted. They're saying that about the Boulder Police Department gaslighting that. I could go on and on about the subject. So what he's doing is he's flaunting his immunity from prosecution.
Right.
He knows he's untouchable. He knows that he's going to get a pass. So he's
Exactly.
taunting us with that. So that results are, they call it gaslighting. So a lot of that going on. That's not a new phenomenon. That's a psyop phenomenon that's been going on for eons. It's part of warfare is what it's part of.
Right. Well, another interesting part, because we've also seen these disconnects in the communications in the words FBI, in many of the letters, like in the Reno, Nevada, you find that there are these disconnects that we've been talking about that I just showed you in Jack's handwriting. This is something that everyone in these communications have in common. And it says, when the letter is made in two distinct and separate movements, referred to as split or fractionated letters, we are dealing with someone who is likely to have problems relating to people. Spontaneous interaction is usually difficult. And that goes back to everything is purely planned, right, Terry B? Like he has to plan everything.
Absolutely.
So spontaneousness, exactly, is not something that we would expect to see in the works. This writer is consciously or unconsciously signaling his or her disengagement with what is happening to him or her on an emotional level. That takes me back to MK Ultra. She doesn't understand self, which makes it more difficult for her to understand others. Adjustment is usually quite difficult for these individuals, and you will usually find other indications of disengagement in the script, i.e. printed or detached letters, reclined slant, etc. And we see a lot of that in these communications. Also, depending on the energy level, there could be some of the characteristics here that we saw in the earlier B formation, where the strokes begin and end to the left of the letter. Now, I didn't necessarily see that. They do begin at the left of the letter, so he's bringing the past back into the future, but typically he is ending on the right-hand side of the actual stem. Let's see. At the risk of sounding repetitive, do remember that this splitting needs to occur frequently to infer this kind of reaction. And we can see that it is absolutely in his T's and his P's and his R's and his D's. This splitting of words and the two-stroke or the fractionated letters are throughout Jack's handwriting and throughout Zodiac's as well. And D.B. Cooper's, if we look at some of those. All right, that brings us to our next letter. This is the composite is not correct, but this is the typewritten version, not the one from Vancouver. This one was sent on December 7th of 1971, it's stamped December 7th, 1971 by the FBI. But that tells me that he's also sending out multiple communications at the same time, which is something that the Zodiac did, sending out 2 and 3 to different locations, or even Sherry Jo Bates sending out 2 and 3 at a time. So this letter says, sirs, I knew from the start that I wouldn't be caught. I didn't rob Northwest Orient because I thought it would be a romantic, heroic, or any of those other euphemisms that seem to attach themselves to situations of high risk. I'm no modern day Robin Hood. Unfortunately, do have only 14 months to live. My life has been one of hate, turmoil, hunger, and more hate. This seems to be the fastest and most profitable way to gain a few fast grains of peace of mind. I don't blame people for hating me for what I've done, nor do I blame anybody for wanting me to be caught and punished, though this can never happen. Here are some, not all, of the things working against the authorities. I'm not a boasting man. Okay. I left no fingerprints. I wore a toupee. I wore putty makeup. They could add or subtract from the composite 100 times and not come up with an accurate description, and we both know it. I've come and gone on several airline flights already and am not holed up in some obscure backwoods town. Neither am I a psychopathic killer. As a matter of fact, I've never even received a speeding ticket. Thank you for your attention, D.B. Cooper. Now, he CCs this, evidently, to Washington Post, New York Times, Seattle Times, and Los Angeles Times. So this went out 4 times on carbon copy. Carbon copy is something we saw happen in Sherry Jo Bates. And he literally used carbon paper and a teletype paper that is used for passing information back and forth between news entities, law enforcement, government. What's that?
I said UPI.
Yeah, UPI and API. They definitely use these.
Yeah, newspapers. The White House. Okay, yeah.
So some of the things that I wanted. The what?
The handwritten letter, is that a Zodiac communication?
Yes. So I have 3 down here. I have 2 Zodiac communications, and I have the Winovich letter, which doesn't come until I think 2001. But I have put it in throughout this presentation because it actually relays back and relates to other communications. So in this particular case, what I was wanting to bring out is the word "sirs" that we found in the parachuter membership request by D.B. Cooper, and then cross-reference that to sirs in this typewritten letter. And then, of course, sir in the Winovich letter, sirs in the Badlands letter from the Zodiac. And then I brought up this other letter from the Zodiac because he starts to number them off too. I look like the description passed out only when I do my thing. The rest of the time, I look entirely different. I shall not tell you what my disguise consists of when I kill. And then number 2, as of yet, I have left no fingerprints behind me, contrary to what the police say. So here again, he's saying exactly what D.B. Cooper's saying is I have a disguise and I've left no fingerprints. Another thing I thought was interesting
in the
was
Paul Stein case. In the Paul Stein case, they found fingerprints. They just weren't Zodiacs.
Right.
Well,
the cab is. Well, yes. Well, Jack did that later at a different point. I think when he heard that they had fingerprints, Dennis's take on that was that he damaged his fingerprints on purpose because they had made an announcement that there were fingerprints found in these cases.
I think it was palm prints.
The palm print.
Yep.
Palm print and fingerprints. And yeah, they were announcing that they had all of this. Some of the key features in this particular letter that I found interesting was it is a way to gain a few fast grains of peace of mind. A few fast grains would typically mean somebody who's on a ranch. Southern reference. Again, we talk a lot about the Southern references that we see in here, like fiddle fart around, barrels of fun, things that reference to hunting or being on a farm. And we see, again, a few fast grains of peace of mind. Neither am I a psychopathic killer. Is that an over-disclosure? I mean, he's saying neither am I.
Mm-hmm.
And
go ahead, Nolan.
Grains could also be a unit of weight measure, like a gram. A lot of scales will measure in grains as well as grams.
Gunpowder and grains. That's what I brought to mind for him is gunpowder. Is measured in grains.
But grains of peace of mind. Few fast grains of peace of mind.
So it's double entendre. I think it's a double entendre the way he's using it there.
He's playing his taunting little games. He's 14 months to live. What does he mean by that? Oh,
that is probably just some random information to make it sound like he's going to die soon or something stupid.
Or he might already have heart disease by then, but he might have had heart disease.
The persona is going to be put away.
The persona is going to be put in a what? Persona. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Point. And it was put away.
Neither am I a psychopathic killer. Again, an over-disclosure. I don't think there was any reason to put in there whether or not he was a psychopathic killer or not, since this was a hijacking and a extortion case. I see that as another euphemism or a way that he can tie back himself to being the Zodiac killer who was complicit with this crime. And this is how he made the money that he's been screaming at Nixon for, because he hasn't gotten paid for the jobs that he's done since I think with, JFK going out and RFK going out and all of these different handlers, if they were if they were being blown through as fast as they were, nobody could catch up to speed or even know what this particular group was doing. And this group, well, at least by Harriette solves, state that they haven't been paid. So he's tying things back, I think. There's no reason to tell somebody, neither am I a psychopathic killer. It just doesn't make any sense.
I think, to me, it also speaks again to the whole thought of persona of this fictional character of Dan Cooper, D.B. Cooper. And so in that persona, no, he's not, that particular character is not a killer. But as Zodiac, he is a killer.
Right.
He doesn't always tell the truth.
No, he doesn't. But again, I call it an over-disclosure when it's random information that's not necessary. I don't know that anybody alluded to the fact that D.B. Cooper was a killer of any sort, so why would he have to make a declaration that he wasn't a psychopathic killer unless he was intentionally looking to mesh these two together?
Well, he was also probably bugged by the fact that they were giving a different description of the unsubbed of the D.B. Cooper character, and he wanted to set that straight. So that seemed to be redundantly address that,
Right.
So yeah.
He was guilty. He's feeling guilty. There's a lot of things going on and behind the scenes.
Yeah,
I think that's also it too.
Yep.
You did not have a solve for this one, correct, Harriette?
I have it somewhere, and I'm looking at my book. I don't see it in here because I got majorly distracted. I got distracted by the surprising letter that I tried to send you about. That was found that had some letter that was having to do with the assassination of Bobby Kennedy. So I'm looking at that.
No, I was just concerned more or less with this one. If you don't have a solve for it, then I'm going to move on.
I'll move on. I'll send it to you when I find it. That may be 2 weeks.
Gotcha. Not a problem. Now, and the next one is the amnesty letter. And of course, we've seen a lot of, I will turn myself in, money will be returned, or, all the way throughout these communications from Lipstick on, from Georgette Bauerdorf to Lipstick, Black Dahlia, Zodiac, Sherry Jo Bates, every single one of these nearly, he has indicated he will turn himself in, all the way through Oakland County child murderer. Like, you're going to hear this over and over again, which is why I keep repeating it. This is a cutout letter.
Right.
What's that?
I said nothing but right. I agreed.
Oh, okay. So this is a cutout letter that says the perfect crime, grant me amnesty, money will be returned, no harm done. So he's asking for amnesty. You actually did have a solve on this one, Harriette, correct?
Yeah.
And do you have that one in front of you?
I did.
Do you have that one in front of you? Go ahead and read it.
Let me just it's an anagram. Everything it was pretty simple for me to do. It's saying it's White House wire RFF. Let me just read what it says.
That's not what I have for this one.
She's breaking up too.
Yeah, let me.
I am. Why don't you read it?
Okay, go for it.
Oh, so this is a to Uncle very old. Please. Is not my real name, a rich man. So nope, this message is something different. I don't have the rich man message. So go ahead and read yours, but you go slowly. Going. No, go slowly. I'm trying to get the solve for the amnesty one.
It's here. You'll find it.
Okay, go ahead and read it. Read it slowly though, because you were cutting out.
Okay. It's again an anagram. It's basically saying, hi, HH, that's HR Halderman. We wire RFF. We were about 4. Donna last supplied 10cc Numatol, easement on Sea Creek, pregnant Marilyn Monroe. Signing off as eat me, because he's a sergeant, master sergeant, and that's his pay scale. So the RFF. Hold on a second. I'm looking for the okay. It was military acronym for request for forces, and that he was the sergeant. Still working on. It's the end of D.B. Cooper. I'm cutting out again. Sorry.
Yeah, we lost that last sentence. So after RFF.
Yeah, it's RFS's request for forces. It's military acronym, and he was working under the operation under the Nixon administration. It's the end of the D.B. Cooper thing. He's trying to get messages to Nixon's H.R. Halderman, and he forces about, because he's saying that there were 4 involved, but he's making a request.
Gotcha.
And
So
it
that's
just
what
has
this
something to do with who killed Donna Lass and why.
Okay. So then that brings me to one. I don't believe I actually have the letter for it, but it was to Uncle, a very old unknown. And please tell the lackey cops D.B. Cooper is not my real name, a rich man. Do you know that one?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the solve for that
one? Yes, it ended up being stenographic code. So, and they're blackmailing. It's I'll just say what the stenographic code is. It's all the misspelled and odd things, and capitalized words. So I'll just go on to the solve. It's saying Bill Hilliard, cooperate. Top LEE. You kill Noman Black Dahlia. That was her author name. Anyways, camera lens, Man Ray, Hodel pictures. He's just trying to say cooperate to topple the emeritus Hoppa. You kill woman named or help her. Camera Man Ray, Dr. George Hodel. Lots. And then he's saying Sam Giancana, woman Donna Lass killed Nevada. Why? So he's just they're trying to get them to cooperate and work with them.
I find it interesting that these messages keep getting pointed at Bill Hilliard, who at this particular point in time is the editor in the Portland Oregonian, and that this entire crime was devised in such to be able to write these communications. Because again, that's what I found in the Zodiac. He wasn't writing because he killed people. He killed people so he could write and get the message out. And here we have this major crime that he's committed, and he's again getting these messages out and to the people who you seem to have decoded that has been involved in these operations and are also part of the news, part of the media, part of the newspapers. They're editors. He's constantly writing editors. So why would it be strange that Bill Hilliard keeps popping up as the editor to whom he's pointing these communications to? To me, it seems like it's not a coincidence.
Well, plus George Hodel was.
Well, I just wanted to say real quick, Bill Hilliard was working for the Oregonian, becoming an editor.
You're cutting out, Harriet. You're cutting out.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
I just said he was working for the Oregonian. We got that, but you're cutting out, and we can't.
No, it's the mob. It has to do with the mob, the Get Well party where nobody got to eat. They broke the story, and he was the editor then in 1957. And Sam Giancana, all that. So he was helping to break up the mob then. So now they're getting him involved with this to, do a job.
George Hodel was an actual suspect in the day.
Right.
Yes, he was.
They were desperate for suspects. Man Ray was the artwork that he had, and they were saying that his artwork looked like the cut up remains of Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia.
Yeah.
So there's there's continuity. There's continuity here.
Hodel's son is a detective, and he wrote a book basically alleging that his dad was the Black Dahlia murderer, and not just Elizabeth Short, but a few other women in LA too that had tiebacks to the lipstick murders in Chicago.
Huh.
He failed though on some of that because he was pointing out a picture of a person that he thought looked like one of the victims, and he didn't look at all like the victim. So I think his son filled in some stuff that he shouldn't have in his book. Nanette and I have discussed that before.
It's how he lost credibility. I think he pushed it a little further than he needed to.
He did. He lost credibility.
Yes.
Yeah. But otherwise,
and he said his dad was also suspect to be Zodiac too.
Yeah, that's where he lost me.
And he lost credibility there too. Yeah. So his dad would have been.
His dad would have been 71 years of age at the Zodiac murders.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't Zodiac.
Yeah, with the game.
I feel strongly that he was involved in the LA murders, the Black Dahlia murders.
I think the reason why he extended that is
possibly involved. I don't believe these people keep secrets very well.
I think that Hodel stepped as far as he did because there are so many document examiners who have made the identification that the lipstick killing, the Black Dahlia, and that the Zodiac writings all came from the same person. So if he was going to insist that his father was the killer of Black Dahlia, he had to press on. He had to put his father in places where he couldn't possibly have been, or the likeliness of him being that suspect was not even a consideration at the age of 71. But because you have so many document examiners that are indicating that these communications were written by the same person, it sounds more to me like I've said Jack was the author. He was the go-to guy for writing the communications and making a confusion or a mess out of these cases.
And his book was accepted.
One other quick point too.
Hold on, Nolan. Hold on. Terry was speaking.
His book was accepted because it's disinformation. It's wrongful information. And they like that. They want the wrongful information. They don't want the truth coming out about that stuff. So,
Right.
George's son, what was his name, kept himself in the good graces of the whole everything, the networks. So yeah, Steve Hodel. So he's
But
he's not.
Go ahead,
his
Nolan.
dad.
he also did.
Go ahead.
But Hodel also did some good research into the Chicago lipstick murders, and it's true that in those there was some surgical things done to some of the bodies, much like Elizabeth Short's body, the dissecting of body parts and things like that, so that's why there were similarities. And then, like on the street names in L.A., that some of the women were found tie back to street names and people's names in Chicago. And both Hodel, Elizabeth Short, and Jack all have ties back to Illinois.
Right.
Well, we got better information with Zodiac Jack, and I'll tell you exactly why right now. The coordinates of where her remains were staged or put on Norton, which is next to Degnan, where Jack put them. Those coordinates the longitude is 118,333, 118, and that 118 was put on the Ramsey murder note. It was a redundant hint that he put in. Yep. I think 333 was his way of saying, I do things in groups of threes.
Three of a kind. He says three of a kind in one of his Zodiac letters.
Right. And then when you get to Victory SBT, I'll show you how that's a really simple puzzle that names Burke Street and Garrett Road. So our suspect fits in every single way. And Steve Hodel, as Nanette said, filled in a bunch of blanks he shouldn't have, and it blew his credibility. If he had something, I would say, oh, yeah, he got that. But when he makes stuff up and says, oh, this person looks like somebody, they don't look at all like them, I think, come on. And his ability to recognize other people has got to be questionable,
Right.
My half brother was that way. You couldn't recognize anybody. The next day,
since you talked about SBTC, on the next letter, I'm actually going to discuss that. This is a D.B. Cooper to the public. Now, to the public is, again, concerned citizen, wanting to, the Winovich letters, all has to do with, I'm going to inform the public, which is another running tangent that we see in these communications. It says it's possible stamped December 20th of 1971. He says, to the public, I must ask you, who in the hell do some of you people think you are? And what in the hell do you think you're doing? I have succeeded in pulling off one of the most successful, talked about crimes of today. Then some guy credits himself with the masterpiece and thanks everybody for their cooperation and hospitality. Well, damn it, this is making me look very stupid. These prank letters must stop. So now whoever's writing in is claiming that the letters initially came in were pranks. No one was endangered. The caper was only committed to show the unbelieving world that a perfect crime was possible. I have notified the FBI asking that they grant me amnesty. The money will be returned. No harm done. Sincerely, SWL. So, alias David Bartholomew Copperhead.
That's a term from the Civil War.
Jeez.
Go ahead.
But yeah, okay.
Quick.
That was definitely CIA intel.
The lipstick murder in Chicago. One of the victims was Suzanne Degnan, and that was the
Right.
street intersection that in LA.
Okay, we've passed that.
where
We've
one of the
passed that,
victims was
Nolan.
found. Yeah.
Right, we
Oh,
passed
go
that
ahead.
and just
I'll hear what
discussed
you have to
that.
say.
We're on a different letter now. So we're talking about David Bartholomew Copperhead is the alias for somebody listed as SWL. What I wanted to note on this is because Terry and I have been talking about following these acronyms that he's putting in here with the period marks after it, but it seems to be a consistent sign off, as in John Benet Ramsey with the victory SBTC. Here we see sincerely SWL. And of course, then he says alias David Bartholomew Copperhead. What is that about? Again, random information.
About two different books or two different situations. I know for sure a Copperhead was a term they used during the Civil War in people that switched sides or something to that effect. Or they were not sincere or they were being treacherous. And David Bartholomew is from a famous book. I'm not an avid reader. David Bartholomew Cubbins, I think, was the name of the book. So he's doing a little, just like he does with his movie quotes and his music quotes. He's quoting a really old read there. I think Harriette might know more about this, or even Nolan, you know more about. It seems to me there was a character named David Bartholomew Cubbins. That rings a bell from my childhood. I never was an avid reader of that sort of stuff, but a Copperhead was somebody that was a traitor to this. I think they something to do with the Civil War era, and I'm not an expert on that either. But
what is your take on that, Harriet?
Revolutionary War era. That might be
perhaps that too. I don't know.
Revolutionary War.
They were good at putting me asleep in school when I went to school. They were boring, they're like So that's why I didn't do so hot in history at the time. No,
okay. You guys are going way off on a tangent here.
Well, it is but it is a tangent.
David Bartholomew Copperhead. Why would he give an alias when he signs off as somebody named SWL?
Right.
And then lists an alias as David It's useless, random information that makes no absolute sense to the communication. And again, that would be back to what Zodiac does.
He's being flippant. He's being somewhat flippant, is what you're saying. But a Copperhead is someone that's not necessarily your friend if you were from the South. If you were fighting for the South and you had found that one of your people was not being honorable to you, you were called a Copperhead. We'll look it up. I'll get you a better answer later about both of those. But he's being flippant, but he's also revealing something by being flippant too, I think.
Well, and you have a solve for this one as well, Harriet. I have you down for this particular letter. President Richard Nixon, White House, need double same. Robert Kennedy. Do you know that one?
Go ahead and read it because I'm looking for it, but you just go ahead and read it and I'll explain as best as I can.
Okay, so it says President Richard Nixon, White House, need double same. Robert Kennedy, activity monitoring division forces at FBI Quantico now.
He's requesting help. They need more, just like the other one. Requesting.
I was just going to say.
Requesting for. Yeah, so he's repeating the request, if I understand correctly. If he didn't get the other coded message, he needs to get this one.
Gotcha. So he's asking for assistance, for help. In what, though?
Getting a body double for Kennedy.
Well, they're just trying to. The DB Cooper I found was an extension of the Get Hoffa Squad. So, and the Get Hoffa Squad is because they killed Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King. So they're requesting more forces, more help. If you didn't get the request for forces, the other code, maybe you'll get this one. We need more funding to finalize the job. I think that's what he was trying to say.
Gotcha. So I show in here, so Activity Monitoring Division is a via technology, wiretapping, surveillance, and there is a division at Quantico for this. So when linking the two messages, it appears that since there were about 4, they are asking for double of that used for Robert Kennedy, get Hoffa Squad, and those linked to Hoffa like Sam Giancana, and those linked to him too.
Yeah, they're just requesting more funds, more sources, because in the end, they're going to get what became the enemy, Hoffa and Giancana.
Well, we have another.
A lot of our politicians.
We have another solve for you from the plan for retirement. So it said plan ahead for retirement income, DB Cooper. You said it was 40 symbols, and I believe you used an anagram on that. Do you have that particular solve?
I believe I do. I'm looking for it, but you can go ahead and start reading it because, again, this is my stuff, and I end up remembering exactly. Some of them were so simple. I just couldn't believe, just anagram, and there it is.
Okay, so this one says John Dean, low flying area drone, Ulperd 3, photos contain Chief Executive Officer, Premier, Zhu Enlai, bedroom. LFA is military acronym for low flying area. Zhu Enlai was China Chief Executive Officer Premier, and John Dean was Nixon White House counsel.
Right.
Yeah. So he's saying that they got the pictures. They got at least 3 of these microfilm that are compromising pictures. Nixon and whoever's involved, which I know somewhere in Canada it's involved too, because they're using Canada, mail. And anyways, they're getting ready to move those pictures, and they're trying to end the Vietnam War also, because both sides, communist China and a lot of countries on our side, did not like what was happening, and they're going to blackmail Zhou Enlai and then bring them some pictures and say, help us stop the Vietnam War for your country and ours, or we're going to publish these dirty pictures.
When did the Vietnam War end?
He started ending it. Nixon started ending it around 1973, about a year after that wonderful meeting where he made history. A few months after this communication was sent.
Gotcha.
So, so there was more to go. It was a lot of reasons why he was trying to establish normalized relations with the closed up communist China that was supporting, oh my God, what was going on in Vietnam, all those horrible murders, deaths, so much going on.
Right.
So they were trying
Let me
to
see
end
if
the
we can
Vietnam
get through
War.
this next communication, because you have another solve here for the Sky Marshals in Portland Airport. DB Cooper Confidential is some cutouts that are on here, and it shows December 10th of 1971. And of course, your solve on this is attention Spiro Agnew, Arthur Lee Allen, phone SIS at Riverside City College to supply 1 Donna Lass doctor assistant suit, a Good Samaritan hospital time card number 71717171684 A, East State Line, Nevada, Y, Highway 50 and Route 207. Location ground 0 is the 0. To shoot former President brother Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Temple Paul Stein hid a good to go 9mm gun, 98 rounds at the operating room department, 12609, I'm guessing AM.
Yeah. That's he was trying to remind why they're doing these operations, and this time Agnew.
And at this very time, this is also when Spiro Agnew has been forced to resign. He borrows $200,000, which is the number that DB Cooper jumps with from Frank Sinatra. Like, there are some things that are definitely connecting around there. Well, that's about all we have for today, you guys. We can pick up on this solve next week and kind of cover some of the things that you think it means, and then everybody can kind of chime in. I want to thank you guys for being here again. I want everybody to have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you all next Friday.
Bye, kids. Bye, Harriet.
Bye.
Bye, Nanette.
Oh, help!